I see opportunities in other markets that, quite frankly, I don't know that well, but I want my money working in that market. So I invest in, Texas. I invest in the Midwest, but I invest with people who know those areas very well.
Welcome to the Going Long Podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels. And you know what? Today we've got another amazing conversation that you're going to get so much out of, that you're going to learn so much from. But just a couple things I want to talk to you about because you want to hear more and more about this. And so, you know what? We're giving it to you. So I guess most importantly, the way that we continue to rise together in the podcast rankings is thanks to you, your continued commitment, support to download the episodes, and also to leave your honest written reviews as well as ratings. So something that goes a long way. If you have not had a chance to do that yet, go ahead and leave an honest written review as well as a rating. And we've got even a little video here that's going to help you to be able to do that in the links in the show notes. Also too, a lot of you have been asking Billy, how can I go see the previous video versions or the audio versions and things like that? Because you want to go back and listen to one of those awesome conversations we've had in the past. All you need to do, we made it really, really easy. Just go to billykeels.com. When you get there, go to the podcast tab, right? So you can check out every single episode, listen to them, watch them as many times as you want. Go to billykeels.com. Once you're there, go to the podcast tab, and you'll be able to check out every single previous episode, right? And also too, a lot of you that are accredited investors, and you can find out what that is. I know I've talked about it before, but we're starting an investor club, an accredited investor club. And if you want to know more about that, or you'd like to interact as an accredited investor, just go to AI Club at billykeels.com. I guess it's better, write an email to aiclub@billykeels.com. Find out more about the accredited investor club, and we'll be in touch. So as it relates to today's conversation, this is another one of these conversations you're just going to love. Especially, I know there are a lot of you that are high paid professionals, sales executives that are in the IT space. This is specifically someone who's been in the IT space, was in the financial services space as well. And really and even though so many things were working out, was really just looking to have more control over his financial life. Had to have some very difficult conversations when he had to sit down with the spouse and say, hey, listen, we put a lot of capital here and we lost that capital plus some. And so if you are concerned about having some of these conversations, I know you're going to learn a lot from this conversation, the steps that he took to be able to not only overcome that learning experience, but also now is going out, has much more control over his financial life, is making impact, is long distance investing in a way that makes sense for him. He'll talk to you about some of the specific ways that he's figured out where he's going to go and which locations, and also how he goes about meeting and building his teams. So there's a lot that you're going to be able to do. You're going to be able to combine that power of and. So continue working in your awesome day job and start to have more control over your financial life by long distance investing. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation we're going to have today with today's guest, who's Tim Vest. And we'll get to that in just a few minutes. Whether you're an active investor or a passive investor, you really like your day job and you want to continue to go into your day job every single day feeling better, knowing that you've created the right options for yourself. At the same time, you just don't have enough time to really get your head around, spend all the hours investing long distance. Well, one way or the other, over the last number of years that I have been investing long distance, I've really understood a number of the major mistakes that you should avoid if you want to get to creating the right options for yourself much faster and being able to create more income sooner. And if you want to do that, if you want to understand more about that, I've made it really, really simple. You can just go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid. You can learn all the things that the 7 major mistakes that I've seen over and over again that I want you to avoid. Once again, you can go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid. So if you want to know what it means to go from IT success to harvesting positive experiences for your long distance investing journey, then guess what? Today's the conversation that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. You know why? Because today's guest has had over 20 years in the IT space as well as financial services space. And that's really relevant for so many of you that are out here watching us and listening to us today. He's also successfully led teams of up to 20 people in multi-million-dollar budgets. And you know what? He and his team today are currently focused on sourcing multifamily properties that help to meet their investors' specific criteria. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation the founder of Harvest Properties Group, Mr. Tim Best. Tim, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Much appreciated.
Hey Tim, this is way overdue, man. I've been a fan from yours and the things that you are doing is specifically online, right? A lot of positivity, really, being extremely sharing the knowledge that you have, being open, honest, the things that work well, the things that don't. And I'm really glad that that long distance story also that you're going to share with the Going Long family is going to be amazing for so many people. So I'm glad you decided to invest your time with me in the Going Long family. So the thing is, Tim, we got to jump right into it, man. Everybody gets the same 5 questions. You're going to get 2 in the beginning. You're going to get 3 in the end. And then you and I are going to kind of mix it up in the middle and see where the conversation takes us. So to get us started off, help the Going Long family understand, where exactly do you live in the United States?
Yeah, so I live in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, just north of the city, actually, around Lake Norman. Been in North Carolina my entire life. Traveled quite a bit, but I'm a Carolina boy.
Fantastic. Well, I'm a big fan of the Charlotte area as well. Got connections there, have properties and opportunities there as well. So it's a wonderful place, and up north side of the city is absolutely fantastic. So appreciate you sharing that with us. And then also too, help us understand, what's the most positive thing that's happened to you, Tim, in the last 24 hours?
Oh yeah, great question. It'd be real easy for me to say that it would be the closing we did yesterday. We closed on another multifamily property. But actually, kind of what happened last night, somebody reached out to me asking for some mentorship, some coaching. That was a little bit of news to me. I don't typically see myself that way. And so that was kind of that kind of gave me a lift, if you will. And I agreed to work with them. So I would say that would probably take the cake.
Hey man, so double congratulations. So congratulations on the closing, and also to the just to have that impact that you're making on others, and someone, even though you may not see yourself that way yet, but I'm sure more and more, like I've reached out to you because I wanted to have you share your story here. It's great when you are able to mentor and coach other people and help them along their journey. So congratulations, and thank you for sharing that wonderful, wonderful, positive news with us.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So, and listen, Tim, I always joke because I give myself like this impossible task to tell your entire story in like 6 seconds. Not possible ever. So could you do me a favor? Can you share your story, your backstory in your own words with the Going Long family? And I would like for you to just also too, if you can think about specific decisions that you made, and sometimes those decisions were difficult ones, but what those decisions were that helped you to get to where you are today in this point in your journey. And then from there, like I said, we'll see where the conversation goes.
Yeah, sure. So backstory, like you mentioned, 23-year IT career, came straight out of college, went to work for IBM Global Services, doing JD Edwards implementations, traveling all the time. That got a little old, so pivoted out of that and eventually ended up in the financial services area doing IT work. And then around 2006, I met a couple of guys that I was working with at the bank I was at the time. And they were doing investing in real estate, specifically in land development. They were buying properties in the Carolinas coastal area and the North Carolina mountains, and working with developers to bring that land, prep that land for kind of general market offerings. So, you'd go buy 100 acres, split it into parcels, get it ready to take to, say, a DR Horton or a Shea Homes to develop homes on it. So we were doing that. That went extremely, extremely well. We had 3 primary development partners, and then 2008 rolled around, and two of our development partners went out of business, and went bankrupt, and then the third one shut their doors. So all of a sudden, things weren't going well, and that was pretty rough time. Lost quite a bit. Learned a lot of valuable lessons at that time, though. So if you want to talk about, critical decisions or things like that, one of the decisions there was it would have been really easy to pack up my bags and just focus on IT. I was doing very well in IT. Luckily, I was doing well, so I was able to weather through that. but lost a lot. My wife wasn't very happy about the results. So it would have been very easy just to pack it in and not continue down the real estate path. But around 2010, decided to pivot and get back into the real estate piece after taking care and wrapping up some of the business pieces from 2008 and 9. And got into fix and flips and single family rentals. As a lot of people listening probably would know, 2010, 2011, quite some time, there were a lot of opportunities for flips and to get good deals on single family homes. So I was able to do some of that. Did that up through 2018, when I finally kind of decided I'm working way too hard on this real estate stuff, and realized I had built a business that did not scale very well. And no matter the amount of processes I was putting in place or people I was trying to bring in, it wasn't scaling. So sold off my portfolio and decided to take a look at some other areas in real estate. Did some research, looked for a mentor. I spent a good year doing that, and decided to get into the multifamily space. And tracked down a mentor that quite frankly, I stalked for about 6 months to make sure he was the real deal, and signed up with him, and then moved into the multifamily space around 2019. So that's kind of how we got here.
Wow, man. I mean, there's a lot of different things that we can unpack in there. Obviously the multifamily stuff we're going to get into. We're going to talk about your fix and flip. We're going to talk about the fact that you found this new world. You were already in the IT space. Then this development started happening. But one of the things that you mentioned, and I don't think people think about enough, is especially we've got a lot of IT salespeople that listen to us, right? And a lot of pharma, a lot of medical and legal professionals as well.
Sure.
But you mentioned one thing that really struck my heart, and it was your wife wasn't very happy, right? And this is one of the things that is reality when you're in a high-paid professional role, and the music kind of stops, or something kind of the wind gets popped out of your bubble. And I'm just curious, how did you work through that? Because, especially for those of us that are married, I'm married as well. So, I know what it's like, that dynamic. Maybe you could talk to us a little bit about how you were able to navigate through that.
Yeah. So first, I'll start off by saying it helps that I have a wife that's extremely understanding. She puts up with a lot for me. She's godsend. So, and I truly mean that.
Yeah.
She's an amazing individual, very successful in her own right. She's an HR executive with a fairly large corporation. And she understands business. She understands people. She also understands when you're willing to sit down and have a hard conversation with her. So the first step was to sit down and just be honest with her and go, hey, everything I've made the last 2 years, it's gone, plus some. And I'm going to be dealing with some financial institutions for the next couple of years as they try to come recoup some things. So, that was step one. The next step was then sitting down and with her and showing her the path forward, what I was going to do to address these things, and truly kind of put a business plan out there. It's almost like pitching to an executive or an investor, really, because quite frankly, she's invested in this,
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big part of it. And then also, my wife had been around me enough in the corporate world to understand how I'm built just personally. And I spend enough time in a corporate setting, and I get pretty miserable pretty quick. I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy the politics in the corporate world. And it's just kind of ingrained in me. My dad was doing it all the time. My brother has built a very successful business here in the Carolinas. And it's just ingrained in me to be an entrepreneur. And, whether I'm making $5 or $500,000, I want to be an entrepreneur. And she knows that about me. So that was a big part of it as well. She kind of looks at me and goes, I know you're not going to be happy unless you're doing something on your own or something with a partnership, something you're building. So she gives me a little bit of leeway to do that as long as as long as there's an understanding that I'm doing it the right way and that I have a plan. Again, but it starts with an understanding wife. I'll be quite honest about that.
Yeah. And one of the things it's that your wife understands you in the way that you operate, and she understands that, you are built a certain way. You also were upfront, honest, talked about the situation, not just that you lost something plus more than that, and that you were going to have, and I love how you said that, like you were going to have this relationship with banking institutions for quite a while into the future. And you also put together a plan. And Tim, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us, because I think a lot of times we can get into this thing of, hey, you're working this great corporate job, you make six figures, like mid six figures, and you're fantastic. And well, everything continues to work and you're only making things happen. And it's just a reminder that every single thing that we do and that you do has an element of risk attached to it. It's just a matter of, are you educated enough to really understand that? Can you mitigate it? And do you have the team around you that is going to also be honest with you and say, look, if you're going to get into this is a potential downside. So sure. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. One of the other things is, like, why in the world would you even get, like, because a lot of people are in IT and high paid professionals, like, why would you even get into something else, man? Because your dollar per hour is massive. So why in the world would you look to go from that to something that is, bricks on a wall and all that other kind of stuff?
Yeah. So honestly, what got me started was I had been through enough roller coasters in the IT world. Being in the IT world, you kind of understand this. Being in the IT world, you track IT companies. Yep. So I've invested in IT companies, and I've seen the roller coaster that comes in the market from technology. Right now, it's late 2021. The market's high. It seems like the sky's the limit for almost anybody who sets up a shingle and puts some stock out there. But that's just not how it goes. And around 2006, I just had not seen the growth out of money that I had invested in the market that I wanted to see. I had been tracking my 401k, maxing out my 401k, getting the match, and I was at a company that matched very nicely. And it just wasn't growing the way I wanted it to. I wanted to have a little more control over those things. So, I knew I'd read enough books to have continuously seen the old adage that, hey, 50% of or whatever percent of the world's wealthiest people are invested in real estate. And it, just a little light, you read that enough, a little light goes on and you're like, maybe there's something to that. I should look into. So I started to look into that, and it really came down to, I just wanted more control over my life, my finances. And quite frankly, I wanted to build something that my daughter could benefit from, and maybe her kids too. And I just saw real estate as a way to do that. I did not see the IT world as a way to do that unless I was going to go out and start an IT company myself. And the success rate on that is pretty low.
Right. It definitely is pretty low, but most people don't want to recognize that. And I think it's one of those things where you're working in this amazing job, you make a lot of money and probably more than you probably should. And then when you're done with that, you can't actually hand that over to your child and say, hey, you go ahead and do that. So it's the fact that you already had that, and when you talk about being able to have more control over what I like to say is over the financial aspects of your life, because every day, if you're on that roller coaster going up and down, there really is no clarity in terms of where things will end up potentially, because you don't know if you're looking up, you don't know if you're looking down. So I appreciate you talking about that element of control. And so then you're also, if we could take another step, so you're in like one of the major MSAs, metropolitan statistical areas in the United States. It's phenomenal. This is one of the places people want to continue to build, because there's so many positive things that are happening, not just in the state of North Carolina, but in the city of Charlotte. And you've decided to, also join us in this, we like to call the long distance investing family, right? And so I would love for you to talk about this, because, and I've taken it to an extreme, right? I live here in Europe and invest exclusively back in the United States as of today. But all the books tell you, Tim, invest in your backyard, invest where you live, because that way you can go over and see it and you have more control and you can do this and you can do that. But I fundamentally don't believe that, which is why I love having people like yourself, experts, come on and share their story. You can do it actively, passively, but help us understand what for you was the thing that said, you know what, I'm actually going to not just invest in real estate, but I want to do it in a place that's beyond my backyard.
Yeah. So I just tend to look for opportunity. And not to say there's not opportunity in Charlotte. It's just sometimes, especially when starting out, that opportunity for someone starting out is extremely limited in Charlotte. We always talk about other people's money and being able to to assemble the right team and things like that. But hey, let's be honest. Until you've built that network and you've built that network of investors, the team you're going to be able to assemble and the investors you're going to be able to bring in, it's going to have limitations to it until you've invested the time to build that network. So, like I said, I mentioned that I was doing land and then fix and flips. I was doing that all with my own money, just me. So good news is I never lost anybody else's money. Bad news is I lost a lot of my own, and I never had a huge network outside of just my little here.
Gotcha.
So I realized I was going to be extremely limited if I tried to just be in the Charlotte area or, within 30 minutes of Charlotte. So I basically first sat down and said, I'm going to draw a 4-hour circle around where I live. And I'm going to be willing to go out within 4 hours in any direction of my house. So that's how I ended up, in Richmond, Virginia. That's how I've ended up near Charleston, South Carolina. And oh yeah, by the way, Charleston, South Carolina is one of the fastest growing areas in the United States. I think it's actually outpacing Charlotte currently. So Charlotte's a great market. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to find something here. I just haven't found it. And I've just found higher returns and better returns, 4 hours away. And then from an LP side, because I do invest passively as well, from an LP, I try to eat my own, advice here. And I tell people all the time, hey, invest in people who know, invest in me because I know this area. I'm in areas that I know really well. I see opportunities in other markets that, quite frankly, I don't know that well, but I want my money working in that market. So I invest in, Texas. I invest in the Midwest, but I invest with people who know those areas very well.
And so when you're investing with people that know the areas very well, number one, it gets back to one of the kind of the 4 levels that we love to talk about here, which is really understand personally, what is it that you want to be able to do? Are you looking for tax benefits, cash flow, some type of equity buildup over time, or whatever the case may be, right? And you then want to be able to say, okay, well, what location is going to give me the highest probability of finding that objective that I'm looking for, to that goal. And then afterwards, it's the team, right? Because the team needs to understand the location and they need to be able to understand and focus on what it is that you want to be able to do. And then afterwards, and hopefully you will agree with this, Tim, once you know personally what it is that you want to be able to do, you've found the location and you've now are betting on the jockey or the team. It doesn't matter if it's a 700 unit apartment building or a fix and flip or a ATM machine or energy equipment, or the things that I always like to use examples of. As long as those 4 things are aligned, well, then you can pretty much be or go wherever you want.
Yeah, 100%. I absolutely agree. And I think you actually stated a little better than I do a lot of the times. As long as I know what my goal is and I've identified areas that can help me achieve that goal, then it really doesn't matter at that point. I'll even give you an example. We closed on a 32 unit yesterday. It's meeting the goals. It hits cash flow, tax advantages, and equity build. But at the same time, I'm getting ready next week to close on 3 single family properties that we're going to convert into multifamily. This area, just for whatever reason, the city had some foresight and they saw, hey, we should just go zone all these areas as multifamily, even though single family homes are sitting on them. So now there's opportunity there, and those really, really hit the cash flow, metric. Maybe not as much on the appreciation side, but I also have other things that I'm doing that are more on that equity build than on the cash flow piece. So, I know what my goals are, and I look for a blend of deals, regardless of how big or small, that kind of address, I try to hit at least 2 of the 3 areas that I'm trying to hit with everything. I don't usually go for anything for just a single piece, but yeah, I look for deals that bring a blend.
Yeah. And having that foresight to say that there is no, and I guess what you're also saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there is no perfect deal. The deals have to meet certain criteria, right? But it can't literally be every single criteria. It could be if you're lucky, but chances are you probably want to set a couple of priorities in terms of what are the goals that it has to meet as a minimum. But it's not necessarily that meets every single one in order for you to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. My business partner and I like to we use baseball analogies a lot. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, if I sit around waiting for the grand slam, I'm going to be sitting around a lot. So wouldn't it be better to have guys on base when that grand slam does come? So we'll take a double, we'll take a single, we'll take a triple from time to time. And every now and then when that home run or that grand slam comes across the plate, we'll take a swing at it. I think that was a lot of baseball analogies all at once there. But
well, I followed you.
Yeah.
Maybe some of our friends in Europe haven't followed us, but that's okay. Well, they can listen to it again.
I would try to relay it to soccer, but my soccer experience is limited to my daughter's play. So I can appreciate it, but I have trouble with the analogies. I'm a little bit like Ted Lasso, maybe.
There you go.
So, hey, and Jason Sudeikis, if you're listening, here's a chance to get on the podcast.
There you go. Hey, thanks for that, Tim.
Okay. But yeah, if you sit around waiting for that perfect deal, you're never going to do anything. Or you're going to be extremely limited. So, like you said, there may be the perfect deal. It's out there. But you can't do nothing while you're waiting on that.
Yeah, and which is one of the things I do want us to come to, just recognizing certain problems, because some people see problems, other people see opportunities. Wow, don't you just love this conversation? This is amazing. This is fantastic. And so just really quickly, I just wanted to remind you, for those of you that are looking to create more options for yourself, get there faster, and do that with long distance investing, make sure that you go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid, so that you can avoid all those mistakes, get to your goals faster and sooner. Once again, that's billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid. Now back to the conversation. There's one other thing that you mentioned that I think is really important as well. You said that you kind of decided that you wanted to go with this 4-hour radius. Why did you not go 2 hours? Why did you not go 15 hours? Why 4?
Because 4... there was a little bit of thought behind it. So 4 kind of allows me to jump in a car, get there, do something I need to do, and get back if I need to. It can be done in a day. 4 is a day trip, right? 2 just limited me a little bit too much. And if you look within 2 hours of Charlotte, there's opportunity, but you start to get into some pretty rural areas as well. Mm-hmm. So 4 just expanded the opportunity zone and was still something that you could do in a manageable time.
Perfect. And this is where, as a Going Long family, I want you to really understand and dig into what Tim just said here. So, and I kind of intentionally wanted to know why not 2 hours, why not 10 hours? Because as you're listening to Tim, those were Tim's criteria. He wanted to be able to be at least have a day trip, get there and get back, and also go outside of the normal 2-hour radius, because he knew that it was going to provide him more opportunities. Whatever it is, just pick a criteria and then move towards it. Like, start taking action. Going back to Tim's earlier point, don't try to wait for perfection. Come up with something that works for you, get started, and then test that is okay. Maybe, Tim, you would have found that 4 hours was still too close, and you may have gone to 6 hours, or maybe you started seeing that was exactly what you needed, and that's why the 4-hour radius has worked for you. Maybe for somebody else it's 6 hours, maybe for somebody else it's not 30 minutes, but an hour and a half, or whatever the case may be. But it's just to be able to help the Going Long family understand that you can come up with criteria as simple or as complicated as you want them to be.
Yeah.
Tim, one of the other things so I do want to come back to this whole thing of recognizing problems, and specifically because there are a lot of, at the end of the day, especially a lot of us that are either medical professionals or we're in the IT space, that's what we do every day. We're there to help solve problems. We go about it diagnosing them different ways, but also talk to us about what or how you believe that experience that you have from the corporate world, either on the IT side or the financial services side, how that's helping you to better serve your investors and move closer to your goals today in this like long distance kind of format.
Yeah. So for me, I have to, you hit on something key there. The reason I liked IT was I was able to use technology to solve problems and solve very manual problems. I used to go into manufacturing facilities and help them streamline their manufacturing processes. I was a process engineer in a manufacturing facility. So I just have a long line of like, I can see things, I can see issues, and I can see better ways to do things. And so in the real estate space, especially in multifamily, I tend to have a little bit of a knack for showing up on a property and I can see mismanagement. I can see it in little things. We bought a property and one of the telltale signs for me was they knew I was coming. They knew a potential buyer was coming. And the owners live near the property. And when I showed up on the property, there were things leaning against the building. There was trash on the ground. I showed up immediately and I looked at that and go, these guys probably aren't the best operators. And so that immediately had me going back, looking at their expenses and where they were spending money. And there were areas for improvement on the expense side. So I can bring that to my investors. I can find ways to improve a property without spending a dime of their money. We closed on something in Columbia, South Carolina a few weeks ago. We're going to be able to achieve $200 plus rent bumps on the very next lease renewals, which will start in 3 months here. And that will be without spending any of our investors' money. So we're making our investors money right there off the bat without spending theirs.
Which I think is fantastic. So someone may be listening to that going, okay, well, yeah, but so how would you go about doing that, Tim, that you recognize that there was this gap in terms of the rents that could be bumped?
That was actually, so here comes the 4-hour drive strategy, right? So I was in the market a lot. I was boots on the ground weekly, there multiple days a week. And I was literally researching every property in person within a half mile of our property. I was going to it, figuring out what are they charging? What are they charging? What are they charging? I was going in those properties. Some of them I was looking to purchase. And then I was having coffee with and meetings with property managers face to face and property owners face to face, figuring out what they were doing. And then based on all of that, then I was able to look at it and go, there is absolutely no reason why these rents should be where they are. And it was true. Because so when we bought it and we put it under contract, we didn't prime our property manager. We wanted to see what their feedback would be. So we said, all right, leases are coming up. What would you recommend we do on a renewal strategy? And they were at $1,250, and he immediately, without any prime from us, goes, I think you should be offering $1,490 minimum. And bingo, there you go. So for that particular example, it was being there, doing your research, boots on the ground, knowing your market.
Which I think is fantastic, right? And so it is knowing your market in that meaning for those people that are listening, it's either you are physically there or your team or whoever is representing you, which goes back to what you were talking about before, Tim. Sometimes you may want to passively invest with someone else, but they have to know the market or they have to know the location well enough so that you can recognize that there is a 100 and whatever bump in the rents, but then multiplied by the number of units, that is a very good thing because this whole game is about revenue minus operating expenses get you to your net operating income. And the game is played at your net operating income. And when you can find that bump times a number of other properties, and you probably saw a lot of things that you could make more efficient in the way that you were managing the operating expenses, you get yourself some nice long-term debt. And then, hey, guess what? You just made yourself a whole lot of additional value for yourself and for your investors.
Yeah. And to your point, our long-term debt on that property is at 3.8%. I mean,
hey guys, if you're not watching, go check out the smiles that Tim and I just had on our faces on the video version.
3.8%. And I think what was the report for August? I think inflation was at like 5.4 for the month of August. So
I mean, does it get any better than that? And that's the reported inflation. So we don't even know what the real thing is. No, so that's a fantastic Fantastic idea. And one of the other things that I also want to just talk to, because one of the things I know that you have always talked about was this whole, because I think a lot of times people, when you're in a corporate role, and I've been in a corporate role for a really, really long time, you have this ability to say, hey, listen, I know exactly what my KPIs are, my MBOs are, and I know exactly what I need to get done this quarter. And then you say, well, hey, listen, how are things working financially for you? And there's just kind of like this, like lights just go off, or there's a fog kind of drops from the mirror, right? And so I'm just curious, as you are now helping more and more people today, how do you actually help people that are so busy in their day job and they know every single thing about all of their KPIs, MBOs, but when they don't know, they are out of control with their financial life and things like that? How do you, number one, do you see that? And number two, if you do see that, how do you help people to kind of get more control or spend more time or focus their energies on their own lives?
Yeah. Usually what happens with me is I get a lot of people reaching out to me asking, what is this real estate thing? Like I know about the stock market. I got a 401k, I got an IRA, but usually it's a lot of people who, kind of like you're alluding to, they're not seeing the growth that they want to see. They're kind of keeping up. Maybe they've bettered their position a step or two, but they're not really kind of exponentially increasing the way they'd like to. So they come and they go, I'm a little scared of crypto. Real estate seems a little more stable to me, but it also seems to offer some pretty big returns, but I don't understand it. So, in that way, I'm able to kind of explain, my experience with real estate. And quite frankly, I open up some of my balance sheet for folks and I go, hey, look, this is what I've done in the last 6 months. This is what my net worth has done because of real estate. I think I posted something a while back, and not to brag, but just to show, hey, in the last 6 months, I've added 600,000 net worth to my balance sheet. And that was not through the stock market. That was through things I can control. And it's been great. So, I talk to people about that. I get a lot of people who come to me who have done very traditional investing in the past, and they just are curious about, a different asset class, something that's, not what we're taught, in school or growing up, or, kind of with just the traditional message that's out there.
And I think that's fantastic. And the fact that you have people that proactively reach out to you, those are probably the people that are really looking to do something differently in their lives and are realizing that, hey, listen, if I know my KPIs, my MBOs this well, I should probably know kind of what my different ROIs are, my ROEs, return on equity. And most importantly, the one metric that I absolutely love and I keep telling everybody about is no matter where you place your capital, your ROS needs to be positive. And most people will say, well, what? Your return on sleep. So make sure your return on sleep is always positive. So that means you can sleep well no matter where you place your capital in the evenings. So, one of the things, Tim, before we get into going along final three, so I know that we kind of alluded to it in the beginning, but I would love for you to talk to us a little bit more about what you have been doing at Harvest Properties Group, just so people can understand a little bit more about where you're focused, and then at the end we'll help people get in touch with you.
Yeah, so we mentioned the 4-hour radius, so we're very much focused in Southern Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, down into Charleston. Those are the areas where we've primarily been operating. We just recently expanded in the last year, actually into Southern Alabama, into Mobile. And that goes back to that networking piece. Over the last year and a half, I've been able to build a network that I now feel comfortable, working with my network in that area to take on some active investments there. We're currently under contract on I think it's a 38 unit in that market right now. So that's what we've been doing with Harvest Properties Group, mostly in the multifamily space. I did mention we're buying some single families in a certain area and doing conversions, taking those to multifamily. And then we're actually going to be kicking off actually a ground up development here in 2022. We're closing on that property currently, and we'll kick off the plans and development, working with the city starting in around January or February. And that'll be just north of the Charleston market as well. So that's kind of where we're going.
All right, man. Fantastic. So it sounds like you had a lot of very focused items happening and going to
Yeah.
be adding value to people and also continue to help get people's level of education around financial intelligence and things like that up. So which is fantastic. So here's the thing, Tim. These conversations fly by, man. But we got to get to the going long final three. The thing is, I never asked any of the going long final three unless you tell me, because you are today's guest, that you're ready for me to ask you. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
You know, I didn't know you'd be ready. Here we go. Question number one, or actually, I guess it's question number three, but number one of the going long final three, which is we started with you over in the US. I'd love to bring it back over here to my side of the pond, or at least my adopted side of the pond, to Europe. So help us understand, what is your favorite European city that you've either visited or is still on your bucket list to visit?
Yeah, so I'll go with where I've visited. And, it's always a tie for me kind of between Edinburgh and Barcelona. I haven't been to Barcelona in a while. So I see you, man. I see you haven't been to Barcelona in a while. I was in Edinburgh 2 years ago. I'm going to have to go with Edinburgh right now.
Okay, well, that's fine. That's fine. Barcelona gets a lot of votes. So Edinburgh. So we like that. Fantastic place. Fantastic place. And especially in the summertime, I think. So
not so much in January.
Maybe not so much. No, so fantastic. Vote there for Edinburgh. And question number two really has to do with really lessons and lessons learned, things like that. And one of the things that I've been very fortunate to speak to a lot of different people, a lot of very successful people, Tim, and of course you're a very successful person as well. And one of the things that I've noticed is that most successful people, if not all successful people, are very successful because they typically make absolutely no mistakes. And that is the reason that they get to that level of I think I got it wrong again. I get all nervous. That's what happens. Or maybe it's by design. I don't know. So yes, I saw you chuckle a little bit, but the reality is everybody makes mistakes, man. A lot of mistakes. And the thing is, really successful people make even more than most people. But the reality, Tim, is really successful people, they do one thing, and I have recognized this. They do one thing very, very differently. And that is every time they make a mistake, they stop, they learn, and then they apply the lesson that they learned so that they can minimize the chance of making that exact same mistake again. So with that being stated, and yes, you are someone who's a very successful person, and would love for you to share not the mistake or the learning opportunity or however you want to say it, but what is the one lesson that you know is going to be absolutely critical for the Going Long family to learn and take away today?
Yeah, so I've made a lot of mistakes, a ton of them. But one of the things that I always look back at those and realize is I would have probably avoided some of those, or at least had some heads up about it, had I always surrounded myself with good mentorship. And I invest in mentorship every year. I set aside, I just call it my education budget. I set aside money every year to quite frankly, invest in myself, because that's how I look at it. A lot of people look at, oh, you're paying for access to this guy. Okay, maybe, but I'm investing in me is what I'm doing, because I have yet to align myself with a mentor where I haven't learned at least one key valuable lesson that, quite frankly, has made me money, and helped me avoid some mistakes that I've made in the past. But I try to avoid mistakes. I will continue to make them. I promise you that. But I do align myself with good mentors that help me. And I think that's get over this.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that. And also too, you mentioned finding good mentors, right? Meaning the right mentor for you. And we all make mistakes. And the idea is try not to make the exact same mistake multiple times.
Right.
You are always going to make mistakes. That means you're trying to do things differently. You're trying and you're working to do things differently. And so mentorship is definitely one of the ways can help. If it's access, if it's whatever, it's helping you ultimately, like you said, it can help you to get to a financially positive position, as well as helping other people and yourself. Then, hey, look, it's worth it. So thanks for sharing that. And then lastly, the last of the Going Long final three is really helping to feed our brains. So Tim, what is the one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family?
Yeah, for me, especially because it's I'm in a point right now where I'm trying to scale heavily. Who Not How. That's a big one for me right now. I've read it before. I'm going back and I'm reading it right now. And that one's big for me, especially as I'm trying to scale.
Yeah. It's Dan Sullivan, I believe, right? Who Not How. There we go. So it's definitely a great one, and especially when you are working on scaling. Asking that first question is, who can do this? Who is best suited to do this? So I'm smiling because I can relate a lot, and I just finished reading it again as well.
Huh?
Awesome. Tim, listen, man, these, like I said, these conversations go by super, super fast. And I'm just thinking about you talking to us from the very beginning, right? Quite where you picked up the story was in 2006 and working in your day job, and you're finding this kind of way to get involved in something new, have more control over your financial life. You line yourself up with the right people, you're doing things. And then, as you said, 2008 kind of happens. And in 2008, when you have 3 partners and 2 of the 3 go bankrupt and then the third one goes away, then I guess that kind of leaves you in this weird space. You have a real heart-to-heart talk with your wife, who understands you, understands the way that your mind works. You were clear about the issue, focused on the plan, and then you were able to move forward faster together. When you were able to do that, not only were you saying, hey, listen, I'm in a really, really hot market. We're doing things here. But and being able to have more control over your life, you want to also be able to not just leave your day job for your daughter, because you can't do that. You want to actually be able to build something that are assets that can actually be handed down or handed over, or however you want to look at it in terms of wealth building. And then from there, not only have you done that, but you continue to build, you continue to look at a radius, not just in your own market, but outside of your market, which is something that we love. You focused on teams. You've even gone beyond that 4-hour radius now, and you're in other places. You're continuing to build, you're investing in yourself, and you're helping other people. You even talked about in the very beginning, like someone reached out and wants to be mentored by you, which is kind of going full circle as you talk about mentorship. And so I'm super motivated by today's conversation. I know that so many people in the Going Long family are as well. So help us understand, Tim, what is the best way for the Going Long family to get in touch with you, find out more about what you are doing, what Harvest Properties Group is doing, so that we can continue to support one another?
So in this connected world, social media, LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn as Tim Vest. Facebook as well, same thing. And then you can always email me as well at harvestpg.com. So tvest@harvest, P as in Paul, G as in George.com, and through the same website. So those are the best ways to get in touch with me.
Fantastic. And listen, we're going to include all of them in the show notes. The one thing that I do ask every single time with the Going Long family, when you reach out to Tim, because I know that you will reach out to him, when you do that, just let him know that you heard the 2 of us talking here on the Going Long podcast, so that it will help you and Tim continue the conversation and take it from there. So Tim, listen, man, thank you so very much. I really appreciate you investing your time with me and the entire Going Long family, man. It's been really, really awesome. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on. This has been great.
All right. Thank you very much. And listen, Going Long family, I'm really, really looking forward to welcoming you back on the very next conversation. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much. Wow. Don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? You know, when I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow, so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.